Добре. С Гьоре се запознахме точно преди една година в Белград. Тогава бяхме на една конференция и тогава неговата работа беше той мен да ме представя. Колега QA от Македония, много години опит, готин пич, говори интересни неща, забавни неща. Понеже вие може би, така предполагам, нали, голяма част от вас не са тестери, това не е чак толкова популярна професия, може би малко ще ви е чужда темата, но пак ще е интересна. Това, което трябва да знаете за него, че той е готин пич, е, че неговото хоби е да си произвежда вино и си има собствена винарна в Македония. Много готино вино. И аплодисменти за Гьоре, довиждане от мен, приятна конференция.
Благодаря, Алекс. Аз ще пробвам да говорам по-английски, защото говорам некои интерславик есперанто. Okay, so I will talk about a topic, a subject. I will talk about a subject that helped me a lot in my company. So this is a pattern objects model. It's some sort of design patterns during development of automated tests for test the web automation, and it can be very useful for API automation also. Who am I? My name is Gjore Zaharchev. As you can see, I have some official title of Quality Assurance Coordinator in Sivas. Sivas is an international company. We have offices in more than 15 countries, I think. It's basically based in Macedonia. The headquarters is in Macedonia, so I'm Quality Assurance Coordinator. Just another fancy title, nothing else. So I'm working on projects like everyone else, but besides working on projects, I'm having other activities out of that. I'm software testing consultant, as I said, working for clients, working on pre-sales cases and so on. I have more than 12 years of experience in different domains, especially in software testing, manual software testing, automated and performance testing. I'm also teaching software testing. Everything starts 2 years ago when I started teaching at Niš University in Serbia, in my neighbor country. So I held the practical work at the Niš University for master studies. It was specialized in software testing. And now I have an academy in Skopje in Macedonia, and I have currently, last year I had more than 40 students. This year I have more than 80 students on the academy. And I'm also speaking on conferences and other meetups internationally in Europe and local events in Macedonia and Serbia mostly. I have been here in Bulgaria several times, in Sofia. This is my first time in Ruse. Okay, that was enough about me. What we are going to talk about, talk today is a few things about test automation, just some challenges, some advantages that we are facing constantly. Then the other topic, the general design patterns that are used in test automation, improved pattern objects, what I came out with a solution, with some sort of a solution, and some recommendation. Test automation is pretty modern in the last several years. Even we are using it more than 10 years ago, but in the last several years it's more and more popular. It's constantly, some people are talking about test automation, but it's not that easy to develop a framework, to maintain that framework, and to use that framework, and anyone to be able to use that framework without issues. These are some challenges. So basically, when we talk about automation, people think one thing, that we will be fired. This is the first victim of test automation. So, but is that true? Is it going to be that if we automate the things, manual testing will die? I don't agree with that, because actually at the end of the day, the things changed, the things flipped, so test automation is not going to replace the manual testing will only improve the manual testing. So I'm seeing these things complementary and going together. I don't see these things that are going in different directions, or one is stopping, one is going further. So these things need to be complementary, pretty one to each other. Some generations of test automation frameworks, how everything started. So everything started a long time ago with different frameworks and different names. The first generation of frameworks were the record and playback. So you have a tool, it was one of the primitive was Selenium IDE that died a long time ago, but people think that that is still modern, regardless. So Selenium IDE was a plugin for Firefox, and anyone was able to record some action and repeat that action again. That is looking pretty simple in theory, but doesn't work on such way in practice because data is changing. Username, password, for example, is changing, so you cannot update the things. You cannot maintain the tests pretty easy. Development of these tests was impossible. So you are recording the tests, and further maintenance was almost impossible. So it was possible, but almost impossible. Then things change. It's not important about that. Modular and data-driven frameworks. These frameworks have very good concepts because things started to put some puzzles in place. So you have modularity in your framework. You can reuse some actions from other tests, so you can maintain the tests pretty easy. And data-driven refers to keeping the test data separately from your test. So it means you can run the same test with different data, different results, and it will be recorded as different tests. So these are the first concepts. So if you're using, for example, JUnit test and GNUnit, this is called data providers or parameters in some of them. So if you have data providers, it is referring to data-driven type of testing. Then the third generation library and keyword-driven frameworks. The idea was so you can put all the commands in some classes, but you can use these commands in some sort of Excel. So instead of typing some long code, you will type something like click, and you will type the action, but maintaining the XPaths and the idea previously. At that point, the idea was pretty general, but right now, if you're extend the idea, you can get very powerful framework. And the talk that I'm talking is basically based on the second generation and third generation. BDD framework, something that doesn't survive a lot because we thought business analysts will be able to write all the tests in some human understandable language that is called Gherkin, using some frameworks like SpecFlow, like Cucumber, and so on and so on. But the business analysts didn't do that job. So this idea didn't survive a lot. So a lot of people are still pushing, but they're just pushing. They don't see any benefit of the tests that they are using because you're spending a lot of time, instead of having 2 layers only, you now have 3 layers, but the last layer is on the top. Instead to be general on the bottom, you're extending on the top. That is even more difficult to maintain everything. So the maintenance is almost impossible. We have pretty bad experience with that, even started a lot of projects, because when you have more than one person on the project, and we have a lot that, because we have more than 100 QA people in the company, actually more than 120. When you have more than one person on the project, thinking the same is impossible. It's very similar to mind reading. So we don't have persons that can read minds. And the 4.5 generation, actually Selenium-based frameworks. So Selenium is pretty famous nowadays. Selenium is basics for a lot of tools. For example, if you use tools like Catalan Studio, it's actually based on Selenium. They put some adaptation on top of it, some UI on top of it, and actually it's the same thing in the background. If Selenium changed the versions, Catalan is changing the version. If someone updates the Selenium driver for Chrome, Catalan is updating the version. And then we have the last generation, 5th generation, rise of artificial intelligence and full stack frameworks that can support API testing, database testing, front-end testing, mobile testing, and so on and so on. Desktop applications testing. This is possible, and we are able to generate such frameworks, but the rise of artificial intelligence, we are very far from that, because we haven't found an artificial way how to locate the elements. So when we are developing some application, the most important thing is location of the element, how to locate the element using XPath. But these XPaths are constantly changing. If someone changes something in the HTML, the XPath will change. So we need to find an artificial way how to avoid updating of these XPaths. So this is the challenge for the 5th generation. Full stack frameworks are very possible. What are the challenges with tools? We need tool that is easy to troubleshoot it. If we are having issues, and we have issues a lot, especially in browser upgrades, when new technology are in place. For example, we faced Selenium issues when Angular was introduced. So some guys made, actually it was a girl, it was not some guys, but a girl, made a framework that is Selenium wrapper, especially for Angular application, and that is called Protractor. So they needed to make some wrapper on that, to wrap it up, in order to work for Angular application. That was several years ago. Now Protractor can test regular in Angular applications. So we don't have some challenges anymore on that place. Human readable test. People should be able to understand test. Why they should be able to understand? Because testers, especially testers, are not developers. So there is I'm calling it a paradox. If the best developer is writing bad code, what is the possibility that no developer, like a tester, will write a good code? So this is the paradox. How someone who is not a developer to write a good code. So we should have that in mind, that humans should be able to read and understand what they're doing. Easy knowledge transfer. People don't stay in the companies. People are changing projects. For example, in my company, we have a very big team, but we have a team of 20 people that are seniors or leads. So when we have a new project, we assign these people to take over that project. We assign people with less experience on the other projects. So on that way, people are growing, changing positions and so on. So if you don't have easy knowledge transfer, that will be almost impossible. We will not be able to achieve that. So we will need to hire people, we need to train the people for some tools, and we will have thousands of people, and we will not have work for all of them. And it's pretty difficult to hire 1,000 of people, because there are no 1,000 of people, especially not in Macedonia, Serbia, nor Bulgaria. So you cannot find them. That's why we have these academies where we are teaching people every year. And even these people, for example, last year from my academy, for 40 people, 25 of these people left Macedonia. They don't live in that country anymore. Yesterday, a student just wrote me on Viber and tell me, I moved to Slovenia. Thank you very much for the academy. So we cannot find people, even if we are training them for money, they're leaving the country. We need to be able, even if we found something on the internet that is useful, we need to be able to extend it, because not everything fits our needs. So we don't have a tool that can fit our needs. We need to be able to extend it in order to fit our needs. Boost test reliability. We need to rely on these tests. If you are developing tests and we don't have any results like this to be able to execute them, and if tests are failing because of unknown reason, these tests are unreliable. We cannot rely on these results. Managers are asking for numbers. We cannot provide these numbers. We cannot provide pass or fail criteria. No numbers. Forget about numbers. Pass or fail criteria. Should we go, or should we deploy to production, or should we don't deploy to production? Postpone the deployment. So we should be able to find a tool that we can rely on reliability. There are separate frameworks for this that can help with reporting. The reporting is also a pretty important part. We need to accelerate test execution. So if you're finding tools that are pretty slow, that tools cannot be, or principles, for example, for Selenium WebDriver, you have two types of weights. One is implicit, the other is explicit. Implicit, if you use implicit, you need to put treat slip on every step, wait some time, and you will slow down the test execution. You don't have automation. You're even slower than manual testing. Explicit wait is overcoming that, and the first moment after every 500 milliseconds, if the element is found, test is continuing. Doesn't waiting for 20 seconds or something like that. There are a lot of people challenges. I think these are because the tools, we saw these mistakes for the tools, people are solving, the vendors of these tools are solving these challenges, but these are the greatest challenge. People challenge, something that we can unpredict. We had a lot of people from technical faculties maybe 10 years ago, but right now we don't have these people. So we are hiring people from non-technical schools. We even have people that are from musics, people from art, from painting. We have people from medicine that are coming to these academies, so they are not engineers. They don't have this mindset to be engineer. And that will happen even more in the future, because these countries, Macedonia, Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, Albania, Kosovo, Bosnia, these are all developing countries. We are still new in the outsourcing, and we are doing outsourcing. We are cheaper than some other countries. We are better quality than some cheaper countries like India. We have better quality of them. That's why we are a target. And they will require more and more people, because Poland cannot fulfill this need for people. What is the first challenge? People don't know programming. If you need to teach people programming, they will want to become developers. Even they are the worst developers in the world, they will don't do the work that you are giving, but they will come to you every day and they will say, I want to be programmer. I'm getting that every day. If you teach someone programmer, he would like to be a programming, he would like to be a programmer. He will come to you every day that he don't want to work on that project like a tester. I want to be a developer. I want to be a developer. If you want to be a developer, then don't think that going in testing will solve your problem, because you will make more problems with that. People don't have time to learn programming. A lot of people are willing to learn some programming basics like object-oriented programming concepts, only the concepts. I'm not talking about a lot of things, but they are so much involved in the project, they don't have time when to do this. Learning programming will be very difficult. People don't have technical skills. As I said, they are coming from non-technical faculties. They don't have technical skills. This is actually not bad. When you have testers from non-technical schools, maybe they have domain expertise. For example, people coming from medicine, they have domain expertise in medicine because we're developing also medicine softwares. People's lives depends on that. We don't think how to save that life. We just think how to fail the application, how to find the bug. But how to save the life, we don't think on that. So that's why it's pretty important to have people from different domains, not only someone who is technical person. Clients don't allow less experienced people to work on automation. He don't have experience, he will not work on that, he will do only manual testing. And after 10 years, the same person is still manual tester. He didn't learn anything about automation. And as I said, people are leaving companies. We have competition in Macedonia, also in Bulgaria. People are changing companies. If it happened, I don't know, changing a position, changing a company once in 7-8 years, right now that is changing a company once in a year. It's that fast. So if you don't have a good knowledge transfer system, that will be impossible to maintain a framework. And that is happening. In Belgrade, people are leaving every 6 months. We have an office there, and we are starting a new test automation framework from scratch every 6 months because someone left the company. So people don't know how to extend that. They don't have the knowledge, so they are starting with something new. In general, for test automation, there are two main design patterns. The first one is page object model. Page object model is pure object-oriented programming. Having a method or a function for any tiny piece, one line of code, but it's separate function, and calling that function in the main test. Repeating, calling these functions in 100 of tests. Page factory, on the other side, is pretty similar, but adding some annotations. So instead of writing a code, defining a variable that will call like that, you're writing an annotation, for example, by annotation, add sign by in Java, just name equals to something. So this should help non-testers. But actually, it's pretty difficult to add explicit weight, because the explicit weight is newer than the implicit weight. So page factory is getting obsolete nowadays with the modern applications. So what are the advantages of page model, page object model? Code reuse. You can reuse the page specific class in every test. For example, if you have home page, contact page, and so on, you're creating a separate class for each of these pages. Profile update, separate class. Every button, for example, button, text field, some text, you're defining a function. That is the advantage. So you can reuse the code. Clear object-oriented programming. It's pretty basic. You don't need to know Java, you don't need to know Python, you don't need to know .NET. Maintainability. You can maintain the code. If something changed, you know where if something changed on web, you know where to go and change that. It's pretty easy to go there and change it. Reliability. You can rely on your tests more, because instead of updating on 10 places, or actually we have thousands of places if we repeat the same code, we are updating only on one place that is pretty general. Page factory, improved code, as I said, using some sort of annotations. It's not that easy because, code will be shorter and so on, but this is not like that in practice because it's pretty obsolete nowadays. Then we have, if we use, let's say, page object model, this is how one simple function will look like as in Java. This is written in Java. So driver.find element, the locator, the XPath, and what to do. Click, send keys for writing text, and so on and so on. But you have people that want to prove themselves that they are very good developers. So this function can be written on 10 different ways. I will just display, I think that I deleted a few of the slides, so I will display some of them. So you can extend on this way. The same function, you can extend on this way. You can even extend on this way. You can change it with explicit weight, mix it implicit and explicit weight. That will be useless, but then use the implicit weight, but for each function defining separate object of the web driver weight, which is useless. So defining timeouts for every separate element. Then it can look like this. People are putting more things in one page object, which is, it shouldn't happen. Someone will put, try and catch treat slips to slip the code because something is happening, so that is slowing down the code. So on and so on. There are so many other cases. All of these cases will work, but if you combine them, if you ask someone to change something in the code, he will get lost. He will, there is no, how to say, you don't have some pattern that you're following, but anyone is writing a code. And as you see, as you saw, if someone is working with automation, maybe will agree with that. I have test automation on 20 projects currently. When I'm touching these projects in order to help someone, I'm getting lost at the first point, because in the project, the same person using 10 different approaches. Not only one, he's not following only one approach, but using 10 different approaches. On my question, why you're not following one pattern and continue with that? The answer is, I'm copying the code from internet. I don't know how to change it. I'm just copying the code from Stack Overflow. And then my response is that the next time try to copy the response, not the question. So that is the most common problem. People are copying the problem, not the response, not the solution at the bottom. They're not trying to even scroll down, just copy the first thing that they are seeing. They don't even know that that's the question. How to improve the design models, and the first question is, do I need to reinvent the wheel? Is the wheel already invented? And my question will be here, do I really need to reinvent the wheel? What do you think? Bulgarian is okay, I understand everything. The others, what do you think? So we have these wheels. Can we reinvent them? Can we improve them? Of course, yes, we need to reinvent them. How we are going to get to Mars if we don't reinvent the wheel? Our wheels don't work on Mars. This is the best wheel in the world right now. It can survive, I don't know, I think that there was some, how many thousands of hours, any different environments like deserts, like Mars, like Moon, and so on and so on. Like reinventing the wheel in real life, we need to reinvent the things in software automation, in test automation. This is actually a Mars rover prototype. So this can last more than current Mars rovers, because I think one of the Mars rovers is useless right now because the wheels are damaged. So we are giving millions for 10 hours of drive on our Mars rover. Then we have how to start reinventing the things. Pretty simple. Define what are your elements and actions that you can do on web. I have identified many elements, I will tell them. What are the common things with browsers that can be done? Initialize the browser, change the browser if you want to switch from Firefox to I don't know, Internet Explorer, if you have some application works only in Internet Explorer and so on. Define these things. Buttons and links. What you can do on buttons and links? Click. It's a simple action. Either submit, either hit enter, or click. 3 things. Input fields. You can type text, you can clear the text. 2 things only. Instead of writing a type of different code, you only need 2 things. Alerts. What are you doing with alerts? Accept alerts, decline alerts, reject. You don't do anything else with them. Actually, you're typing sometimes a password, but that is pretty outdated. Drop-downs. You're selecting an option from drop-down. You don't do a lot of things. From text. So you have some text, it's not a field, but text label. You can retrieve text for it. For example, you want to validate the price. You want to validate the title. You just need to retrieve that text in a variable, nothing more than that. So I have defined these different type of actions. I have created a separate class for each of them. And the actions, the additional actions, these were the elements, and the additional actions are querying a data from with an SQL query. I just want to query some data in order to validate my things. I have data sources to read from Excel, to read from CSV file, to read from XML file. Extracting data, just retrieving back price, retrieving back title. Navigation, back, forward, refresh. Validation, asserting that this thing is actually what I expected. Expected thing is actually the actual thing. So validating the thing, actual versus expected. So majority of the frameworks have this, so you don't need to validate the things, and separate weights, because Selenium offers not only wait for visibility, they offer wait for invisibility. If there is some loader, you need to wait, you need to continue your page until the loader becomes invisible. Then you have wait for page to be clickable, page to be editable. So if you have dependable elements, it cannot be clickable. For example, if one drop-down is not selected, the other will be unable to be clicked. So you're just making sure that the previous element is working, and so on and so on. So I have a proposal. I'm defining location of elements to define a list of elements. For example, if you have a rows with the same ID, so you need to retrieve them in a list in Java, or retrieving a single element as a web element. Then the second solution that we implemented in our framework was defining an actions in these classes. So I can do a click on a list, or I can do a click on a single button. And then I'm creating objects of each of these classes. I'm extending this class, and each of these objects is available in my test classes. So my test will, actually this how will look my page object class. So I have username, I have password, I have login. I can use these millions and millions of times. I have the locators on the top, so I can easily change the locators without even searching in 2,000 lines of code where is this locator. I'm always keeping them on the top. It's very easy to find them. Is this proven in practice? Of course it is, because we're using for several years, and that was the main reason. People who don't understand programming to be able to write down automated tests. We succeed on the first day, because I was measuring previously, a senior tester, in order to establish an empty framework, he needed several weeks. Because he don't remember the things, he's not reusing his code. Several weeks to establish the same framework again. Why? What I did, extract everything, put it in a jar, build it with Maven, put it in a jar, import it in a project with Maven, of course, or it can be Gradle or so on. Put it in a jar again, import it in the project, call these functions without any issues. Just call these functions. The first day we started with writing tests. Tester was able to provide a test. We put that very easily on Jenkins. We showed to the client. Client was pretty satisfied. And the client was, well, it was very obvious that we were getting a result, and the client now knew it what he wanted and what need to achieve. So we started smoke test, regression test automation, and so on. And we even sell a service right now. We didn't have that service previously, but we assigned someone to work on this service. Few words about summary and recommendation. It's very difficult to teach people sometimes. When you're getting people who have ego problems, you're trying to provide some solution, they're saying, no, that will be complicated, I'm thinking on a different way, I will write this down. This will create you a lot of problems, especially if you're higher in the hierarchy. If things depend on you, people will make you more problems with that. Manual testing will not die, will never die. Test automation frameworks are not smarter. So if it's impossible to create smarter frameworks if we don't think smarter. So smartphone, yeah, sometimes they're saying the smartphone, the phone is smarter than the owner of the phone. So we shouldn't come to that situation. Actually, maybe we can come one day, but right now, maybe it's impossible. My page object model is not working because of a lot of reasons. Because I'm not following patterns, I'm not stereotyping the things, don't stereotype in the real life, do that in these things. Find commonalities. If you're not finding commonalities, you're writing different code for the same thing. Trust me, review, I don't know if someone is working with automation, but review your automation framework. Don't go to your colleague. You will notice you're writing a different function for the same problem several times. How pattern objects can fix your problems with page objects? Pretty easy. You will be able to define human understandable words like click, like type text, like clear text, and so on. So people will be able to use that and think on that way. So you don't need to reinvent the behavior-driven testing. What are my recommendations? Search for commonality. Sometimes maybe you will reuse the same, not only a same step, but the same set of steps. You will decide that you're not going to test negative cases for username and password, but you will need the entire login. Put the entire login in one function on that way. So that will simplify the things. Search for patterns, as I also said. Additional layer of abstraction, but don't do it on the top. Don't do something that is related to the application. Do something related with the framework. Wrap the framework, don't wrap the application. Why should we avoid proprietary wrapper frameworks? We had pretty bad experience with a tool called MonkeyTalk. It was meant for combined manual for testing hybrid applications. So you can write the same test for Android and iOS, and you should be able to run them. And what happened one day, because it was a commercial tool, one day the tool disappeared. The web page disappeared, the tool, all the links that were directing from Google were broken, so we were unable to maintain our tests. We needed to rewrite the tests. At that time we started Appium, and because we saw that with these open source tools that you can create a fork of them and you can extend them at any time, it was better, so we decided to go completely 100% open source. Don't use something that is, yeah, we have free version, but in order to use this function you will need to pay. We decided to avoid these things. There are a lot of such frameworks, but sometimes it's better when you write your own framework. Why it's important? When the browser is upgrading, the driver are also upgrading these tools. For example, if we take Catalan Studio, they will need them 1 to 2 days to fix this and publish that, and your test will not work for this a day or two. If you have your own framework, you will do it in a second, because you will notice that something has changed, you will download it, just put it in your code, and you will continue with the test. That is the advantage. Just an update, Chrome update is happening pretty often. It's not something that happens rare. And that's all. If you have some questions, please go ahead.
Вопрос? Thank you for your lecture. I'm really curious about the AI-driven test framework. Would you give an example, maybe in your company or in the industry where it's used for?
Sorry, you mentioned Appium testing. Did I find?
AI-driven testing. AI.
AI, artificial intelligence. Yeah, the artificial intelligence project, there are some solutions on the internet, and it's officially defined as such. We haven't found a solution how to overcome. Even a lot of people are talking for that. The idea behind the AI is how to overcome the problem when XPath is changing. For example, you have an XPath / or ID equal to, I don't know, ID equal to row 1. But now row 1 is becoming row 2. How to locate now row 2 without making any changes in the code? For example, Catalan Studio, if we take, Catalan Studio is offering you several options. To create XPath, to use some parameters, some variables, for example, attributes actually, to use, it's XPath in the background, but they encapsulated them attributes, so that you can use value attribute, ID attribute. If it don't found by one attribute, it will continue with the next one. If you don't found it with the next one, it will continue with third, and the last check will be the XPath, complex XPath. If one of these things change, you have the option, but that is pretty manual doing the stuffs. If you know how to do the stuffs, you will do in the code. But the idea is they have some sort of recorders, and the recorders will mark that for them, so they will find some commonality. That is difficult to be done. That is the idea behind the AI. No, we don't do it because it's just the idea. We are just manually changing the things. It's faster for us.
Do you use other programming language besides Java for writing tests currently?
Yes. We are not dependent to any programming language because our clients sometimes want Python, sometimes want .NET. Basically, these are the three languages, C#. These are the three languages that they want. So we are not focusing on the programming skills. Our frameworks in these 3 languages are focusing on some design pattern. They're pretty similar, and we are focusing, and people are founding this same, so they're founding the same, so we don't need to reteach them a different language.
And do you test PHP applications?
Yes, we test PHP application regardless of the programming language. We can test with any.
What framework do you use currently?
We use one of these languages because we are testing the UI. The UI is irrelevant in which language is the background, in which language is written. We don't care about that because everything works. Either you use Java, either you use .NET, or either you use Python. Clients just want these 3 because they have some developer on their side that can take over this test from us. Just for that reason, nothing else.
There is no specific framework.
There are specific frameworks. For example, if you want to use, you can use Selenium WebDriver in Python. You can use, using Behat, you can use the Gherkin language. There are frameworks, but we don't see a reason why should we go with even additional framework like Python.
Have you tried Codeception for PHP?
Have we tried?
Yeah, it's a Codeception framework for...
No.
Yeah, okay.
No. Some other question, maybe?
Hi. When addressing elements with XPath and you want to click on them, why don't you use attributes of the elements which do not change, like the links or the form actions? You can change the design, but actually if you want to submit to the same URL to the same actions, those portions of the markup will not change.
Yes. We use these things, and our advice is to avoid XPaths. The first advice that we're giving, never use XPaths. This is the first advice. We are always using the attributes. CSS selector, link text, partial link text, name, value, ID.
But CSS and link text can also change.
Yeah, but
for example, if you change the language on a multi-language
it
site,
will change. Yeah, it will change. We don't have. Sometimes it's pretty difficult, but XPath should be the last option. That is our recommendation.
Okay. And you talked about test maintenance. Can you give an example of that?
Yeah.
Does this happen when the test case changes and you have to change the requirements which match the...
Where I'm seeing test maintenance, for example, if we take Gmail option. First, Gmail started with providing username and password on the same page. Then Gmail changed. Now username, click next, now password. So maintaining these things, because they're providing extra page, they're providing extra button. So maintaining these things, if you're creating the same element, same page, if you create a form here and use somewhere else, do something different, it's pretty difficult to change on 10 places. But if you change only on one place, if you call it separate actions and change only on one place, all the tests will be updated at the same time. I don't know that you saw one of the examples that I gave with username and password and click submit button.
That was the last thing that I was going to ask. If you manage to add this level of abstraction, where you can use a set of commands like click submit, or a list of constants, like the name of the input or the value of the data, can you abstract it even more to be not even programming language dependent, but describe it in some other way, like in Gherkin or whatever other formal language where it does not require the actual plumbing of the programming framework beneath it, but where you can just explain it, where you just write it, like the concept behind BDD, but formalized.
Yeah, of course it's possible, but we haven't thought on that way because this is the time that we are having to use it for that. So this is doing our job at this moment. But of course, we need to allocate someone to work completely on the framework and just follow the
footprint of the test is going to be bigger because in addition to the test data, you also add the actual code of the test case.
Yes.
And it can be made smaller, and smaller is always easier to maintain.
Of course, it can be always created as smaller, but this is what solved our problem with people that don't know programming.
Okay.
Some other question maybe, or it's enough for today? Okay, thank you very much.